This is RAIN Hamcast number 59, posted January 22nd, 2022, voiced by Will Rogers, K5WLR. Until recently, holding a technician class ham license could be a frustrating experience. Along came Anthony Luscre, K8ZT, whose instructional materials target the new ham on one website, ztlearn.com. After Anthony retired from his career in teaching computer instruction for teachers and students, he began producing instructional videos. Here's our second excerpt from a video he produced and delivered to the August 2021 QSO Today Virtual Ham Expo. His video is called Technician Licensees: Life Beyond the Local Repeater.
As far as contesting goes, there are VHF and UHF contests, there's 10-meter contests, and there's CW contests. All of these will be applicable to a technician class licensee, and I put together a video called Introduction to Amateur Radio Contesting for the AWL webinar series, and you can watch the video or go through the video slideshow. Other activities to try out: SOTA and POTA, summits on the air. This is when you go up on a nearby hill or mountain and you operate. And there's criteria for what is considered a summit, but there's summits in every state, even though some states might have very low summits. Parks on the air is when you go to national or state parks and operate and activate those. These can be done on a variety of bands and modes. Digital FM modes are another thing to explore, such as DMR, D-Star, System Fusion, etc. Echolink is another thing to explore. It involves linking VHF radios through the internet to other locations. APRS, Automatic Packet Reporting System, allows you to put a tracker out there and follow it. Fox hunting, as I said earlier, is a great activity. And then don't forget about construction, homebrew kits, antennas, etc. There's a lot of things you can build, and they aren't dependent on your license class at all. Getting started with these new activities can sometimes be daunting for a technician. Read a book. There's lots of great books at the AWRL shop. Read a magazine. AWRL magazines and CQ magazines are great places to get information. Visit a website. Start with my site at k8zt.com for lots of links on different activities. Watch a video. There's lots of great videos out there on the AWRL webinars, on YouTube, etc. Get an Elmer. An Elmer is an amateur radio mentor, aka an Elmer is someone who can help you answer questions and avoid common pitfalls. Now, one of the most common misconceptions about an Elmer is that you can only have one Elmer. You can actually have multiple Elmers, and there's no reason not to. The first place you might want to look for an Elmer is your local club. And if you don't know where your local club is, I have 2 links down here to help you find a local club in your area. There's also lots of old-timers who are happy to help newcomers out, and many clubs have special Elmering programs or mentoring programs that they do. Nowadays, you might find your Elmer online. There's lots of websites and mailing lists that are geared towards helping people who might not be able to find an Elmer locally. One common fallacy, again, is that you can only have one Elmer, and in fact, you can have many Elmers and many different types of Elmers. You might have an online Elmer that you never meet in person, or an on-the-air Elmer that you talk to on the radio, or you might have an Elmer who lives just down the street who you can enjoy not only discussing amateur radio, but meeting in person. I put together 4 slideshows that it might be of interest to you that I've done presentations on. Buying an amateur radio transceiver, both HF, VHF, and UHF. 3 stations for 100+ mile contacts with a technician license for under $100. Talks about 10 meters single sideband. Talks about FT8 and FT4. Talks about satellites, and it also talks about doing some CW. Setting up your VHF and UHF station, and also setting up your HF station, or 2 other slideshow presentations I have available. And that concludes our presentation for today. We're going to start Q&A in just a few seconds, but before we do that, there's a link just following that slide for contacting me. Please feel free to visit my website or contact me via email. Also, I have links to all my presentations that I do, including the one today, at tiny.cc/k8zt-p. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and we'll get started on the Q&As. Thank you very much.
Are you taking questions now?
Yes, we can start taking questions now. That'd be great. people are just coming in, but I'll be happy to start. Please either type your questions in the Q&A, raise your hand, or let us know in some way. Steve and I will be watching the Q&A, and right now we don't have a lot of people, so just go ahead and talk right now, and I think we're okay for a while.
Anthony, I'm KE8OSC. I'm in the Cincinnati, Ohio area, so on the other side of the state of Ohio.
Yes.
And I'm probably one among many that recommended that there be a new ham radio track for this this group or for this expo. I'm interested in knowing. I bought a handheld Yaesu, and I'm one that said, is there life after the repeaters? Because as a kid, I remember, ham radios with tubes and so on and so forth. And, I know things are solid state now, but how do I get started at a reasonable price to get an HF radio that, would allow me at least the fun of getting on the.
Well, one of the ways that traditionally a lot of people have gotten their first HF radios by buying used, and traditionally that was a very common way, and some of that slipped away. There is a Hamfest in your area coming up in a week in the Cincinnati area. I think it's in a week or 2 weeks, and that might be a good opportunity. I also have a website. I put together a presentation. I'll put the link here in this chat. It was in the slideshow, but this is the link for the Buying Your Amateur Radio Equipment. It talks a lot about buying amateur radio equipment, and in there's also a spreadsheet link, and that spreadsheet has listings, and I'll bring that up here on the screen, has listings of various amateur radio equipment that's both currently available, recently discontinued, and also long discontinued equipment. So if you're looking for something a little bit older, let me get the right slide up here. Okay, I'm going to try sharing here, and hopefully it won't make my controls go away like it did the last time. We'll see whether it cooperates or not. Okay, there we go. So you should be seeing the spreadsheet right now, and this has this first tab on the bottom is an HF matrix. It shows a variety of the different rigs that are available and prices and some of the discounted prices. So these are mostly radios either new, currently available, or been recently discontinued, so you can find them very easily on the used market. But when you click on the HF tab, it will show you a number of HF transceivers, including the vast majority of transceivers that have been produced in the last 25 years, 25 to 30 years. So there's a lot of information here. And you can pick up a used HF radio for, I've picked them up for under $100, but sometimes those are very rough. But you can definitely get something very serviceable in the $300 range as far as radios. If you don't already have someone that's helping you mentor locally, that's one of the things I really suggest, because they can help you out with things like acquiring equipment, trying equipment out, and getting a good idea on equipment. That's always one of the biggest problems for many people when they're getting started, is being able to find new equipment or get equipment without knowing much about it. Okay, I'm going to try to.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. I have lost my controls for the Zoom. They keep going away, and I'm not sure where they're going. So let me see if I can recover those. No, it's not going to let me. So that means I can't see the chat, Steve. So I'm going to rely on you to see the chat, to read any questions. So again, please feel free to just ask your questions, type them in the chat, and we will try and get those. Go ahead, Rebecca. I think you had a question. Oh, I got my controls back. They're on my third screen here, floated away from me. Let me get them back under control. There we go. It's so nice to have my controls back. Okay, so now I can see the chat, and now I can control the screen sharing. Oh, okay. Yes, I didn't put. I put 2 slashes down there. I'm sorry. So the by ARY, you need to take out the extra slash in front of the B. And again, all my presentations and all my materials are available at this link.
Anthony, if I may, I'll ask another
Yes.
question. If no one else has
Please.
one. Thank you. Again, I just on behalf of all of us, I really wanted to just thank you. Honestly, I thought the presentation was fabulous, and I think new hams need this because often the answer to everything seems to be upgrade. How do we get our feet wet so that we, want to upgrade?
Well, a couple things. If you don't have an HF radio now, I put together a presentation and a quick start guide on using online software-defined radios that are free to use. And there's thousands of them out there, and you can tune in anywhere in the world, and you can tune the ham bands, you can listen, and that presentation is available in my link. But those online software-defined radios are a great way to start listening without even having to have a radio or an antenna. The second thing I would suggest, really, if you have your VHF 2-meter transceiver, and you can monitor simplex. If you have an outside antenna up, even if you don't have an outside antenna, start monitoring 145.620 simplex. That's the national calling frequency for 2 meters, and you'll be surprised at some of the people you'll start hearing outside of the repeater. There's some people that are on. Now, if you're only using an HT rubber duck antenna, it's not very good for reception, but you can improve that greatly by just adding something called a tiger tail to it. And I'll bring the tiger tail up here and show that here in a second. But just doing something like that can greatly improve your signal. But getting an outside antenna up is a really good step to improving your station and making it easier. But those online software-defined radio receivers are a great way to start listening. Another thing too is if you can find someone who can, share that you can work with that has an HF radio. Let me bring up this share here. So this is an example of a tiger tail. It's just basically a 19-inch piece of simple wire with either a little connector on it, or you can even wrap bare wire around the bottom of the antenna. What you want to do is you want to get the ground part of the antenna connection, not the center pin. And adding that to your HT will improve things greatly. But also going online, and for under $15, you can buy an extendable rigid antenna that which greatly improves your reception. Or by using a piece of 440 twin lead, build a J-pole, what's also called a Slim Jim antenna. And the links in all my presentations are available by just clicking on them. So this is the flower pot antenna. It uses a piece of coax as both the feed line and the antenna. And it's very simple to build one using some coax and some PVC pipe. This will greatly improve your reception on VHF and UHF, so you can start working simplex. So again, that's in the presentation called Portable and Field Ops, and the link to that is right here. But again, all my presentation links are available in this tiny.cc/K8ZT-P, and it has a variety of presentations I've done over the last year. Also, if your local club is interested in the presentation, I'd be happy to do one for your group. So other questions, please.
Anthony, again, I guess I'll dominate, but I asked the question on here with these online software-defined radios. I remember sitting with the shortwave, I think it was a Heathkit, and listening to shortwave when I was a kid, vacuum tubes and so on. I was thinking about buying a shortwave radio so I could listen to, I don't have an HF, so I was thinking of listening to. You're telling me that I can go online, and it sounds like I can do that with software-defined radios. How easy is that?
It's very easy. Here's my grandson. I'm still sharing the screen. Let me share the screen here again. This is my grandson. He was 8 at the time, and he's installed it on his phone. So he didn't really install it. Actually, he went to the website using his phone, and from there he's able to click on this. Now the nice thing is, if you go out and buy a software, a shortwave receiver, most of them like this do not have single sideband, so you can't listen to hams. But with these online radios, you can tune them into anything you want, and they have single sideband reception. So there's a whole list of them available in here in this presentation. And then also there's a link in this presentation for a quick start guide that I mainly use with students when I'm working with schools, but it's just a quick thing on how to use these software-defined receivers, where to find them. So one example is in this web SDR. If I go to that website, you'll see that there's about 75. I can pick any of the ones I want, start it up, and tuned it into a frequency that I want. Now you may or not be hearing sound. Are you hearing sound or not?
No.
Not
Okay, let me stop share and restart it again. Are you hearing it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So what I can do is I can tune this radio in. It's on upper sideband. Let me zoom in here a little bit on it. So I can tune this around anywhere I want. I can get on the CW portion of the band.
Anthony, we're not seeing your SDR screen.
Okay.
We're seeing the one that has looks like a map with regions.
Yeah, that's my background. Here we go. Are you seeing it now?
Yes. Yes, and hearing it.
So you can just slide this little slider. And there's a CW contest going on this weekend in Europe, so it's rather fast CW, but we can tune up the single sideband. Of course, as soon as you tune somewhere, they will stop speaking.
Yeah.
Or you're on the wrong sideband.
Yes. So these online software-defined receivers, there's Siberia. I'm going to go ahead and close this, but again, that information is available on my KZT-P, and if you just go down here to SDRs, here's the presentation, and here's the quick start guide, the line right below it, tiny.cc free. Here, I'll put it in the chat. That's the quick start guide. Now, when I was mentioning CW and we heard some CW there, that CW is going very fast. But when you're getting started out in a contest like that, all they're going to be sending is their call sign in the exchange. So once you can get the copy of the call sign and understand your own call sign, you can actually start making quick CW contacts in a contest. Now, let's say you can't copy CW very well. Well, addition of a CW reader can help you in those contests because those people are sending very precise CW that most decoders will handle very easily. They're not sending straight key CW. They're sending machine generated CW in most cases, or key or CW. Go ahead, Matt.
Yes, Anthony. I just want to go back to the SDR real quick.
Yes.
Are you aware of the Android SDR app Pocket RxTX?
Yes, and there's actually some information on those in the full presentation. Also on the Kiwi series, which uses the Beagle board. So there's a wide variety of them out there, and you can do two things. You can experiment with the devices yourselves and put a station on there, or you could just be a consumer tuning them in and listening to them as a way to get started.
The president of my local club, and he's also a member of the other club. I'm at the regional club up in Asheville here in North Carolina, has a Kiwi SDR online that he gave us all the login credentials for, or at least the people in the club. And I played around with it a little bit, but I just don't know how to use it. So I'm going to have to read your presentation, see your presentation on how to use the online ones.
Yes, and there's a very good in that link that I just put there. There's a link to the Kiwi site help page, and they go through step by step on how to do that. So yeah, definitely take a look at that.
Well, thank you very much. Presentation was excellent. I copied down a bunch of stuff, and at the end of the weekend, I'm gonna watch it again. And of course, go to your Tiny CC link. But thank you, Anthony.
Oh, you're very welcome. Other questions? Oh, and Rainier mentioned that you can also add the plugins that you can decode digital mode. So if you want to decode FT8 or FT4 or even CW decoding within that software-defined radio, there's apps out there that you can install to do that on your computer. Some of you just joining us, again, thank you for watching the video earlier of my presentation. And we're just asking you to either raise your hand or just speak up or type in the chat, and we'll be happy to try and answer your questions. Go ahead, Ken.
Could you give a brief explanation of what we would need to go on FT8 or FT4?
Yes. With the technician class license, you're limited on FT8 and FT4 to 10 meters and 6 meters. There is occasionally some activity during contest on 2 meters. So those are the areas. And one of the real common things right now is a lot of techs are having the misunderstanding that they can use the CW privileges they have and operate FT8 and FT4. Those two modes are not compatible as far as the licensing rules go. So you can't go down on 40 meters and operate FT8 or FT4, but with a technician class license, you can do it on 10, 6, 2, and above. To do that, you're either going to need a radio with a built-in sound card interface or a sound card interface, or the third option is, one of those two options. And I have a whole presentation on FT8 and FT4 in my list of presentations. I'll put the link to the FT8, FT4 one here. Talks in detail about that. But with the technician class license, you are limited to those particular bands that you have digital privileges on. Now, if you upgrade your license, then you have access to many more bands, but it's a very popular mode. And one of the nice things about FT8 and FT4 for a technician is because you might just have a minimal antenna, or right now 10 meters and 6 meters are not having great propagation. This is a weak signal mode, so it works very well when the conditions aren't that great. So FT8 and FT4, if you're interested, I advise taking a view of my presentation on that, or watching one of the videos I've done in the past for various clubs on that. Does that answer your question, Ken?
Yes, thank you.
Other questions, please. Barbara. I think she just made noise and it caught her audio.
Yeah, I think Sonny was asking a brief high level, what is FT8?
Oh, FT8 is what's called a digital sound card mode. So what happens is we use a computer to create an set of audio tones to modulate our signal. In other words, put information on our outgoing signal, just like we would with our voice. But in this case, it's a series of tones. On the other end, our radio receives those tones and then puts it into a computer, which decodes them. So it replaces our hearing and our speech with a computer modulation and demodulation. FT8 and FT4 are designed to be very quick, to be very short bursts of transmission. So they handle 14 characters. So just sending your call sign eats up a lot of the characters. You can send things like a signal report in your location, and that pretty much eats up the 14 characters each time. But it is it was originally designed to be able to do space communication, meteor scatter, earth-to-earth moon bounce. So it works with very weak signals, and it could dig out signals that you can't even hear with the ear, signals that are minus 20 dB. Your ear wouldn't even be able to hear them, but the computer can hear those tones and distinguish them. I really suggest you watch one of the presentations on it, because there's a lot of stuff out there. Yes, Sonny's also asking, how do we learn proper ham etiquette? That's one of the things that's very helpful to have an Elmer with. And the funny thing about proper etiquette in ham radio, just like any other kind of etiquette, is it's not uniform everywhere. So on some repeaters, it's common to say CQ, but on other repeaters, it's common to say I'm listening. So it's a matter of local preference. So one of the key things to getting good etiquette is listen to what the experts are doing. And again, it helps to have a local Elmer that can help, walk you through those things. But listen to the way other people are operating. One of the things I always tell people about when you want to make a contact, the most important thing is not what you say, but what you hear. So duplicate, if there's someone very busy making contacts, in other words, like pow up, which we would call that, pay attention to the stations they're getting through. What did they do that made them stand out or made the other person respond to them, and then copy that. So the etiquette is a lot of times mimicry of what the experts or the successful hams in your area are doing. Hopefully that answers your question, Sonny. Other questions? Oh, and you know, another thing to answer, Sonny, is you got to have a little bit of a thick skin sometimes. As a new person, as a technician, people are, no matter what you do, there are people who just, I don't know, just have trouble with life in general, and they would complain about anything. So you have to be able to realize that there are going to be people that are going to complain about everything you do no matter how you do it. Just don't get discouraged by those people. Find the positive people and work with them. A question asked about, should I participate in nets? And nets are a great way to get your uniform operating down and to learn some of that etiquette. Nets, though, is a very broad term. So we have everything from such as a VHF, UHF net. In other words, a repeater net. Our club has a 2-meter 440 repeater, and every Monday evening at 8:30, we have what's called a directed net. The net control station, the person in charge, will ask for check-ins. People will give their call sign, and he will record those down, and then he will ask those people in reverse order to go ahead and talk to him. So in other words, he's directing them to speak. They will then give their comments, he will thank them, and then he will move on to the next person. So that's one type of net. Another type of net might be an awards net. These are most common on HF, such as a net to help you get worked all states. What will happen is they'll have check-ins from people, and when people check in, they'll give their call sign and the state they're in. Then what happens is the net control person will give each of the people who checked in a chance to call anyone else who has checked in so they can work their state. So if I hear someone like NL7 YY say he's in Alaska and I want to work him, when it's my turn, I will then call NL7 YY. This is K8ZT. If he can hear me, he'll come back to me, give me a report, and I've worked Alaska. If he can't hear me, he might come back to the net manager and say, I did not hear that station. I'm sorry, that was not a good contact. So that's one type of net. Another type of net is emergency communication, traffic handling, or other nets. So there's a whole variety of nets out there, and you can find nets in your area on local frequencies by going to the ARRL website and doing a search for nets in your area. And I also have a link for that in one of my presentations, and I'll dig that up here. I know on our website I have a link for our local nets and all the nets in our area, so people will find those. But you can actually go on the ARRL website and search for nets. You can search for traffic nets, award nets, other types of nets. So nets can be a very good way to get some operating experience, but they are there's very different kinds of nets. The next question is, should I participate in emergency communications? And I would say yes, it's a great thing to do. You'll learn a lot of operating skills. You'll meet people who can help you out with your technical issues with radio, so it's a great way. Is it possible to work 6 meters without buying an HF transceiver? There are a few 6 meter only or VHF only transceivers out there. They're currently, the ones that are available are almost as expensive as buying an HF radio, though. So there are no inexpensive 6 meters out there. But on the used market, you could pick up something like a ICOM 706, which has 6 meters, and you can pick those up very inexpensively. But there used to be in years past simple single band 6 meter radios, but I don't know really of any right now that are available. There are 6 meter FM HTs and some 6 meter mobile radios. Like I have the TYT 9800 is my mobile radio, and it has 2 meters, 6 meters, 10 meters, and 440. Only FM though, so on 10 meters, it would not be useful for a technician because you can't use 10 meter FM. But on 6 meters, 2 meters, and 440, I can use FM as a technician on any of those. So if you're interested in operating 6 meter FM, yes, that's one way. But that won't get you FT8 or FT4 capability because that uses a single sideband radio. But it does give you an opportunity to start working something new. So that's one thing you can do if you want an inexpensive way to start out with 6 meters. Someone asked, how do you get involved with emergency comms? I would do a search for your local ARES group, and that's a good way to start out. But again, all these things I'm talking about, one of the most helpful things you can do is find a local club in your area that you can work with, and that'll be the person then you can ask people, who does MCOM in our area. Ken has a question. Worked in terms of getting contacts, logging contacts. Work basically means making a contact. When I say I worked Japan last night, that means I made a contact with one or more people in Japan last night. So it's just a verb that means that I made a contact with someone. Can we also, it's almost always used in the past tense also, so it's a past tense of making a contact. Can we also log Encolink contacts the same way on the air? You can log anything you do. Now, some things are available, some awards have specifications. So like some awards don't let you use Echolink to count towards that award, but that doesn't mean you can't communicate that way. And I believe that any type of communication you want to do is a good form of communication. So Echolink, WinLink, some of these other computer aided and linked modes, DMR, they're all good ways to talk to people. Now, logging is a good question, and I'm actually going to do a presentation on electronic logging this afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific time, on electronic logging, and I'm going to talk about that in detail. So please stop into my session or watch the recorded version afterward. From Mr. Farmer, any dashboard software website that shows UTC and local time with other information that are usually shared or asked during a contact. I would set a clock in your shack to UTC, or most of the logging software I just talked about also gives the UTC time, so you'll know the UTC time. Also, many programs like the program that you run FT8 and FT4 with tells you the UTC time. I'm also using a spotting software called, let me bring it up here real quick. I think you might be, let me stop sharing and reshare here again. So this is my spotting software, VE3SUN, and notice it's showing me the stations that have been spotted and the bands are on. It also tells me the current UTC time right here, and it tells me the UTC time that everyone was spotted. So there are a lot of software like that, but almost every logging program will also tell you the current UTC time. And it's very important to keep all of your logging and all your records for contacts in UTC time, especially near the end of the day, because at 8 p.m. Eastern time, it's actually 000 UTC time. So it's actually going to be the next day in a few minutes. So not only does the time change, but the date is different. Is there a tutorial for Logbook of the World? Yes, there is. And there's a very good one available out there on Logbook of the World. If you go to my website, k8zt.com, and go to the logging page, there's information there on that. So again, k8zt.com, and then look for the logging section. Oops, I sent that to the wrong person. I keep doing that because sorry about that. Let's try this, sending this to everyone. Let's see here. Gail, I'm glad to hear you're getting excited again. That's the thing I want you to do. That's everyone has their niche in amateur radio, and my two favorite niches are the thing I'm doing today. My number one niche is making contacts. My number two niche is helping other people make contacts. So I love doing presentations, but I love also making contacts on there. I mean, I build things, I experiment, I work with antennas, but my favorite thing is making contacts. Okay, let's see here.
As a new ham, Anthony, like I just got licensed last year, just before the pandemic, and I can't agree with you more. Join a club.
Yep.
Join a club, you get in with some good people, and you can learn.
Ken, probably the quickest antenna for fox hunting that works very well is a tape measure antenna. So do a search for tape measure antenna for fox hunting. It's very convenient, it's portable, and it's a great way to get started. When you get more involved, you might think about Doppler antennas and all sorts of things, but just a simple tape measure antenna is a great way to get started. Operators don't tend to, the question from Sunny is, do operators use their last name? Most people don't, and a lot of it is not necessary for privacy purposes as much as brevity. When hams first start talking to each other, they didn't have call signs, so they'd have to give some information to identify them, so they would give their names or things of that nature. So it's been very common to do that. The problem is when people are giving their names, there'd be more than one Joe, so you wouldn't remember which Joe it was. So call signs are really our identifications. And one thing about call signs as opposed to names, there's only one K8ZT in the entire world. There are a few other Anthonys out there, and even my last name, which is very odd, Luscre, there's a few other Anthony Luscres out there. Not many, less than a handful, but my K8ZT, that's me. So that's my identity. So any name I give along with that is superficial in my case. expect people to recognize me by my call sign. And actually, I remember a lot more people by their call sign than I do by their name. So as you grow into it, last March, I did a presentation for QSO Today Expo, and it's available now. You can watch the recording on choosing your ideal call sign. And it talks about vanity call signs and choosing call signs, but it also talks about call signs in general, and you might find it very interesting. Next question came up is about grid squares. Grid squares are a location. And the nice thing about grid squares, let's say you're talking about a country, if you're in a tiny country, it's quite obvious that you're in the same location. But when I talk to someone in Australia, there's a big difference in Western Australia versus Eastern Australia. So it's really nice if I can pin it down. And the way you can pin any location in the world down is by its grid square. And the grid squares keep getting smaller and smaller divisions. So if I say EN, that's a grid square that covers a good portion of the Midwest of the United States. But if I say EN91, that's an area that covers about 10 counties in my area. If I say EN91 FD, that is a 10 square mile area right where I live. And if I add 2 more characters to it, you would even know what street I lived on. So I have a whole presentation on finding grid squares out there. And if you go to the portable ops section, I have information in there on finding your grid square using online sources, phone apps, maps, and everything. So again, yes, there's a lot of things out there. It's not necessarily rude not to log contacts, but one of the things, if you don't log your contacts, is it's harder to keep track of those memories. I just turned 40 years of amateur radio in July, and I can go back and look through my old logs and remember things I did and enjoy it. So it really adds to the enjoyment. Also, if you're interested in pursuing any type of awards, worked all states, worked all continents, DXCC, which is working 100 countries, you're going to need record of that, and you're also going to need confirmations in the form of QSLs. So it's very polite to be able to do that. And if you give out QSLs, then other people will give QSLs to you, or confirmation cards, whether it's electronic or whether it's paper cards. So I would suggest you keep a log. I keep a log for everything other than my local repeater work. Any simplex contact I make, any HF contact I make, they all get logged. This year I will pass 100,000 QSOs, and I keep very close track of them. I also am very interested in data analysis, so I dump my log into a spreadsheet and do all sorts of analysis of my logs to see, what country I've worked most, what call sign I've worked most, all those sort of things. When did I first work a country? How long did it take me to get worked all states this year? And my record so far is 3 days last year to get up to my worked all states, to get all 50 states again. So yeah, those are things that are not necessary, that are helpful, but I think you'll also make the amateur radio hobby much more enjoyable for yourself if you do keep a log. Other questions? We have about 2 minutes. Do any radios have logging apps? The KX3 and KX2 will let you log CW if you're sending with a keyer. It can actually log in the field. But there's so many logging software out there, both computer software and app software that you can use. And again, if you watch my logging presentation this afternoon, I'll be talking a lot about those. I see that Arnold, that's very common. He was licensed in 2017. He supports his local ADA Tour de Cure and NYC Marathon. Those are 2 great things, and that's the way a lot of people get involved. He has housing restrictions. He's in an HOA, and he needs the knowledge to get started. Well, one great way to do that is to be able to start working portable, where you don't have to worry about that. So take your antenna out in the field and operate. Read my presentation on portable operations. Think about using remote transceivers, not just remote receivers, but you can also use remote transceivers that you can talk through. So there's ways around that. Also stealth antennas. When I lived in my apartment, I had an antenna in the attic. I also had a satellite antenna I took outside only during the satellite passes. But that's a great way. The low Earth orbit satellites that I mentioned in my presentation are a great way to operate. The session will close down any second now, so I'll keep answering questions until we get shut down. Any of the yes, the little antenna I show in the portable operations, that under $12, I think I paid $12 for my extendable antenna, works great, and it really improves my HT reception. Go ahead, Ken.
I hear a lot of people, just because they're on their HT, they say their call sign and portable.
You don't need to. That's just an old habit.
Okay, so I thought portable was, off of battery power or solar power or whatever.
No, it's a nebulous term. Portable, originally the FCC required you to do that whenever you operated anywhere except from your home station. It was required that you keep a separate log, and you also sign portable whenever you were operating away from your house. So that, and even if you were in the same town, it didn't matter. But especially if you were in a different call district, you'd have to sign portable too. So I'd have to sign, if I was in Pennsylvania, I'd have to sign KZT portable 3 at that time. And I think we're being shut down now, so I will finish taking questions, but I think we will be losing our connection very soon. I can keep going, but I don't know what's going to happen.
Do we know if the chat is also going to be available with the recordings, or just the recording?
I don't know whether I don't think it will be. So again, all my links, my shortcuts are all available at the tiny.cc/K8ZT-P. Also, a real quick way to find all my information, go to k8zt.com. So just write that down, k8zt.com, and you should be able to find anything I've talked about today. And again, also, feel free to email me in the future. I'm always happy to answer emails. And if your club would like a presentation on any topic, let me know. I'd be happy to do it. And thank you all for attending today. I always give my attendees lots of homework, so I gave you lots of links today. So I expect you all to spend the rest of the week studying all my links and finding out new things. And I hope to work you all on the air, no matter how it is, whether it's via satellites, whether it's via HF, whether it's via 6-meter e-skip, whether it's FT8, whether it's whatever mode possible. I don't like to limit my opportunities to make contact, so I operate all modes and bands, with the exception of don't currently have anything on the microwave bands here, but that doesn't mean that I won't in the future. So thank you very much, everyone, and I'm going to go ahead and leave the session, and please go to your next session and enjoy. And also, don't forget to stop into the lounges. Go in the lounges and chat with people. Even when all the sessions are done today, the people will be hanging out in the lounges. I was there late last night in the lounges, so don't miss the lounges. It's a great part of the expo. Thank you very much, Steve, for helping me out. And 73, everyone.
Anytime. 73, Anthony. Take care, everybody.
And that concludes our 2 excerpts from Technician Licensees, Life Beyond the Local Repeater, a virtual video produced by Anthony Luscre, K8ZT, and presented to the August 2021 QSO Today Ham Expo. The RAIN Hamcast is copyright 1985-2022 RAIN, the Radio Amateur Information Network. YouTube assistance from Tom Shimizu, N9JDI. All are welcome to transmit this Hamcast over amateur radio under a Community Commons license. RAIN Hamcast number 60 will post February 5th, 2022. I'm Will Rogers, K5WLR, bidding you very 73 from the Radio Amateur Information Network. Keep on hamming.